Amy Eds here. I already did a video earlier on this mask, and my purpose and goal of it was to have a mask where you have a removable pipe cleaner and filter for washing. Well, I actually have now come up with a new pattern that's a little bit more efficient, so that is what this video is all about. So, let's make it so. Alright, so I've laid out your different sizes for masks. We're going to be doing the 7x9, which is our average size, and which is what we're making for medical workers or frontliners. So we're going to have our two pieces of fabric, our front and our back, and you're going to put those right sides together. And we are first going to clean finish the top. Okay, so we're going to start after you have clean finished the top, which is zigzagging, serging, or fold under, or you can use the selvage. On this one I've used the selvage. We're going to do a 5/8 inch seam allowance, which is right here on my machine. And we're just going to do this for the top, and we're going to need this width for our pipe cleaner. You always back stitch when you start and stop to reinforce it. We're going to stitch about 1.5 inches. On my machine, that's about to this gray line. And we're going to back stitch. And then we're going to just skip about 3.5 to 4 inches. And no, I do not really measure it. I kind of eyeball it. That's good enough. It's just enough space to let your filter be pulled out. We're going to start again, and make sure you back stitch because you want that reinforced and strong to pull out the filter. We'll finish sewing that edge at a 5/8 inch, back stitch when we start and stop. Alright, there's our first step, all done. Okay, now we're going to press that seam open. So you take this, open it up. And this, what we're doing is creating the pocket for our pipe cleaner, or whatever you want to use, a wire for your nose. We have this little opening that's going to end up being where our filter is going to go through. So I've got that pressed open. And then we're going to top stitch, starting, remember we only stitched about 1.5 inches. Now we're going to skip about another inch past that. You want this open, basically just past your presser foot. And we're going to stitch, top stitch, 1/4 inch from that middle edge. And your presser foot, if you didn't know, is generally 1/4 inch wide. So I'm just going to go on the edge of my presser foot. I'm going to back stitch when I start and stop just to reinforce that. And I'm doing 1/4 inch seam top stitch. Go all the way to the edge. Alright, so now we have that next step done. Okay, for ear loops, you can use elastic or t-shirt ties. I've made these t-shirt ties that are quite stretchy. And now what we're going to do is just get those in. You put right sides together, and I don't even pin it. I love this method, it's super fast. I stick that in there, right in the top, put my right sides together, and now I'm going to stitch down. And I'm going to do 1/4 inch seam allowance. It's going to be thick when you start, so it might be a little hard to get started. Back stitch. Then sometimes I forget that I've got to add that loop. So I put this little pin here to remind me. And so then when I get close to the bottom, I pull this pin off. It's just to remind me to not forget to grab my loop, because I've done that a few times. We're going to grab the other end of our loop. We're going to set it about 1/4 to 1/2 inch from the bottom, right there. Set my fabric on. If you want to pin it, you could. I've done this enough times that I'm not going to pin it. Just sew right over that. Then I'm going to leave my needle in the machine. I went a little far, so I'm just back stitch right there. Flip it around, and I'm going to sew the bottom once again so I don't forget about adding my ear loop. I just stick that little pin on the bottom, it's a reminder. I'm going to sew all the way across that bottom. Okay, as I get here to the end, I'm going to pause about 1/4 inch from the bottom, leaving my needle in. I'm going to flip this, open it, stick my next ear loop right in, and I'm just going to shove that in against the needle right there. And I'm going to start sewing again. About 1/4 inch seam, and then go about halfway or so. I'm hanging on to this t-shirt loop so don't forget about it. Now I'm going to stick it up in the top here. I like to fold these seams down. You don't have to. You could leave them sticking up. Then finish sewing. My t-shirt loop is right in there. Back stitch, and that is all done. Okay, now we're going to turn it right side out, and those, you're going to go through where you would add the filter. So we have this little filter hole we've created in the top. We've got these t-shirt ties we can grab. Super easy to pull right side out. Pull those corners, and voila, you have it all out. I'm not going to take the time to do this on the video, but I like to press it nice and flat. I already have this one all pressed nice and flat. Once it's pressed nice and flat, you're going to flip it face down. You're going to fold that right in half. Press it. I love this trick. I have a video showcasing this trick and another trick if you prefer the other way. Then you're going to fold this up to that center line. Press it. You're going to fold this up. Press it. Then I flip this over with the top facing me, and then I grab where I've just pressed, fold it down, so there's about 1/2 inch space between each pleat. Then I just hold that down, and this is my favorite thing. You don't need pins or anything. I use these bobby pins. You could use hair clips. You could pretty much use anything you can think of that would hold this together, and stick those right on, ready to sew. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stitch down the sides here, and this top corner is going to be a little bit thick. Sometimes it's hard to push that through. And we'll go ahead and go down and grab the back stitch that. Alright, and I do like about 1/8 of an inch seam. Sewing that down, just push those pleats, and as you go, and then I stop because the pleats need to be reinforced just a little bit to stay extra strong. And I go just a teeny bit away from my last stitch, but you could do it however you want. That's just how I do it. And I do 3 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, it's good and reinforced. Then I stitch across the bottom, but you do not have to stitch across the bottom. It will just hold it nicer for washing. And that bobby pin is in the way, so I'm going to just slide my other bobby pin, swap that out. Keep stitching. When I get to this corner, I'm going to pivot, flip around. Now we're going the opposite direction on the pleats, so I use a little pin just to help hold that down as I go, just to help those pleats go in. And they went so nicely. And we're going to flip around and stitch down. And then back up. Then we back stitch. Oh, it's being thick. It's hard in those corners where I have those ties. Okay, and guess what? We are done sewing this mask. Okay, so you've sewn this. Now to insert the pipe cleaner, I flip over this edge about 1/4 of an inch. It just helps it slide in a little bit nicer. And then you're going to open your filter pocket, and remember we didn't stitch right here. You can now slide your filter up under there and right into this top seam, and just slide that right in here. And it's bending on me, and I don't want to take the time to unbend it. But then get that in. For the filter, you can just cut. I cut about a 5 by 7 rectangle, and then I round these edges just enough to basically fit in that edge right there. So there you have it. There's all different sizes, different ways you can do it. This is such a neat thing to be a part of. I don't know how many of you are doing this to donate. I've donated several, and it's really been a neat thing to hospitals. I'm doing some right now for a children's hospice. See how cute and tiny they are? Anyway, you guys are all awesome. This is a great, great opportunity to serve others, or to help out your family, or to protect people during this crazy time in our world. Good luck. God bless everyone, and go and make it so.